Welcome to Construction Math. Today we're going to be graphing inequalities in two variables. So think about a time when you had to decide which side something was on, and then write it down on your note taker, share it with your partner. Teacher, pause the video and then allow students to compare and then call on non-volunteers, and I'll meet you back here in a minute. Welcome back. Today for the math check, I need to make sure that you can graph these two lines. All right, so teacher, pause the video, have them graph the lines on their note taker, and then have them compare with their partner. So pause the video until they're completed. Okay, welcome back. Let's go to our slate and let's look at these. The first one is the line y equals 2x plus 3. Well, it's already in slope-intercept form. Remember, y equals mx plus b helps me to graph. So the slope is 2. I always make it into a fraction, so it's 2 over 1. So the rise is 2 and the run is 1. And then the y-intercept is 3. So let's look at a graph. Let's do a real quick. Oh, I don't like that very well at all. So let's erase it. Can I erase it? There, I found the eraser. All right, let's go back to our paint. All right, let's go and try to make it a little bit better. That's much better than it was. Put your tick marks, make sure they're evenly spaced. On your note taker, there should already be a graph for you. And then the y-intercept was 3, so that meant on the y-axis go up to positive 3. From there, the slope is 2, so I have to go up 2, right 1, put a dot, and then connect the lines, and there's my graph for line number 1. Line number 2 said y equals negative 2/3 x minus 1. Again, my slope is negative 2/3. I need to decide where I want the negative, and I think I'm going to put the negative in the numerator. You could put it in the denominator if you want. The y-intercept is negative 1. So let's go ahead and draw another graph. Oh, I'm doing a little bit better than I was. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Luckily, you have the advantage to be able to use a straight edge too. The y-intercept is negative 1, so on the y-axis I go down to negative 1. It said the slope is negative 2/3. It said I put the negative in the numerator, so it means to go down 2, right 3, put my dot, and there's my graph. If you can graph these lines today, the whole graph is going to be a whole lot, or the whole lesson will be fairly easy for you. All right, so teacher, pause the video until students have had a chance to check and add to their notes. Welcome back. Let's clean this off and let's go back to my PowerPoint where I had some nice graphs that I made. All right, here's my two lines. And you can see that they're a little bit more nicely drawn there. All right, so now the objectives. On your note taker, what I need you to do is fill in the missing words. Step number 1, we're going to list the steps in graphing an inequality in two variables. We're going to have x's and y's. That's why we're going to use a Cartesian plane or the coordinate graph. Step number 2, we're going to graph an inequality in two variables. And step number 3, we're going to write and graph an inequality in two variables for a real-world problem. So we're going to go ahead and take it all the way to an example from your program area. All right, so pause the video if you need to, and I'll meet you back here in a minute. Welcome back. Let's go on. Here are the steps. So number 1, we're going to replace the inequality symbol with an equal sign and graph the boundary line. So we're going to use that same idea of y equals mx plus b. Number 2, we're going to graph the boundary line with a solid line if the symbol is less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. Or we're going to use a dotted line if the symbol in the original inequality was less than or greater than. Number 3, we're going to choose a test point that's not on the line, substituted into the inequality. And 4, if the statement is true, we're going to shade in that side. If the statement is false, we're going to shade the opposite sign. So pause the video while students add these to their notes, and I'll meet you back here in a minute. Welcome back. Now, paraphrase in these 4 steps in your own words. Teacher, pause the video, have students paraphrase, have them share with their partner, and call on non-volunteers. And I'll meet you back here in a minute. Welcome back. Here's example number 1. Y is greater than negative 2x plus 3. So step number 1 was to replace the inequality symbol with an equal sign and graph the boundary line. So let's go ahead and go to our slate and let's see what we've got here. We've got y is greater than negative 2x plus 3. So the first thing, the helper graph is going to be y equals negative 2x plus 3. So on our PowerPoint, the next slide will say, find the slope and the y-intercept. So why don't we just do it right here from our slate? So go ahead and tell me what the slope is and what the y-intercept is. Teacher, pause the video, call on non-volunteers, and I'll meet you back here in a minute. Welcome back. So what we found out here is we should have noticed that the slope is negative 2. I'm going to make that negative 2 over 1 because slope needs to be a fraction. The y-intercept is going to be positive 3. So I'm going to go to my graph and I'm going to use that information to make 2 points. So my y-intercept is at positive 3. Let me put some tick marks on my coordinate plane. All right, so the y-intercept is at positive 3. The slope is negative 2 over 1, which means to go down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1. So I've got the 2 points for my line. Now I need to decide whether the line is solid or dotted. So I look over here at the inequality. The inequality is strictly greater than. It doesn't have an equal sign. So it means that my line over here is going to be a dotted line. And we go. Now we're going to pick a point. Step 3 is to pick a point that's not on the line. I like to pick the origin if it's not on the line just because it makes the math easier. So the origin right there is the point 0, 0. So let me see what happens when I put it in. I'm asking myself, is 0 greater than negative 2 times 0 plus 3? Is 0 greater than, well, negative 2 times 0 is 0 plus 3. No, that's false. So that means I don't shade the side that has the origin on it. I shade the other side. And that's the answer to my graph. It's all of these points. There's really an infinite number of answers. It's all of these points that are above this dotted line. So add that to your notes and pause the video, and I'll meet you back here in a minute. Welcome back. Let's clear off the slates and go back to our PowerPoint. And let's see. We found the slope in the y-intercept. I dotted it because it's a greater than symbol. I picked a point. This time I picked the point 2, 3. I substituted in and I got 3 is greater than negative 2 times 2 plus 3. Is 3 greater than negative 1? That's a true statement. So I'm going to shade that side and there's my answer. It looks a little bit nicer when I use the graphing calculator to help make those lines. So now, here's the think, pair, share. I want you to work with your partner and see if you can graph the inequality y is less than or equal to 1/2 x minus 3. Pause the video, teacher, have the students work with their partners, and then compare with another group and see how they did. And I'll meet you back here in a minute. Welcome back. Let's go back to our slate. Let's copy down our problem. All right, y is less than or equal to 1/2 x minus 3. So I'm going to look at all the information this is telling me. First of all, it's in the right format. Y is equal to mx plus b. So from here, I can find my slope. My slope is 1/2. Look, it's already a fraction. My y-intercept, or my b, is negative 3. I look at this symbol. It's got an equal to symbol. It's less than or equal to, so I know that when I graph this, it's going to be a solid line. So let's go ahead and graph. And the y-intercept is negative 3. Let me put some more tick marks here. And slope is the one time where you have a fraction, it makes it easy. So the slope is 1/2. So from here I go up 1 and write 2 and put a dot. It said it was a solid line. And I missed the dot, so I'll redraw it. There we go, a little bit better. Now I pick a point that's not on the line. Let's pick the point. I think I'll pick this point right here. That point is 0, 1, and let's see what happens. The y is 1, and I'm asking, is y less than or equal to 1/2 times 1 minus 3? Is 1 less than or equal to 1/2 minus 3, or is 1 less than or equal to 2.5? Again, that's false, so I would shade this other side. Now let's see if that really would work. Let's pick a point that's not on the line. Let's pick the point 4, -5. That would be someplace down here. And let's see if that made it true. So y is -5. Is that less than or equal to 1/2? X is 4 minus 3. Is -5 less than or equal to, well, half of 4 is 2 minus 3. Is -5 less than or equal to -1? That's true. That's why it's also this side. It's everything down here, and it's an infinite number of points. The boundary line is solid. So pause the video if you need a little bit of time. Welcome back. Let's go back to our PowerPoint. Let's go through the steps. Replace it with an equals. I've graphed it. This time I picked the point 0, 0. Does it make it the inequality true? Well, what do you think? Show the teacher. No, it doesn't. It's a false statement. So you shade the other side, and there we've shaded it. And that's what it looked like, just a little bit better than my drawing. Now here's a word problem example or a real world example. It says a company specializes in two things: demolitions, which are going to be the X, and foundations, which are going to be the Y. Market demand requires that the number of demolitions must be at least twice the number of foundations. All right? Given this constraint and the fact that neither X nor Y may be negative, because there's no way in the real world that I can graph negative demolitions or negative foundations, it doesn't make sense. So in this problem, let's go ahead and I want you to underline the key terms, the key information in this, and then compare with your partner. Okay, so let's go on. Here's what I have for you. So here we're going to write the inequality. Market demand requires that the number of demolitions X must be at least. At least means greater than or equal to. At most means less than or equal to. So please add that to your note taker. And then it said the number of demolitions X must be at least greater than or equal to twice the number of foundations. So that would be 2y. So let's see if you can graph this on your note taker. You can work with your partner if you wish to, and we'll see what you come up with. Welcome back. Let's go to our slates and let's look at this. The inequality said that X must be greater than or equal to 2y. Now, is that in y equals mx plus b form? No. The first thing I need is the y to come first, so I'm just going to flip it over. So it's going to be 2y on this side and x on this side. Notice how this points to the 2y, so when I flip it, I flip the inequality also. Now, I also know that I need to have it solved for y, so I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So I got y is less than or equal to 1/2 x. And remember, there's no constant, so that's plus 0. All right. If I'm going to graph this, think about the slope, think about the y-intercept. And then I'm going to do something I haven't done before. So the slope is 1/2. The y-intercept is 0. It's going to be a solid line because it's less than or equal to. All right, solid line. So let's go ahead and start looking at this. All right, the y-intercept is 0. So I put a dot at the origin. I go up 1 and over 2, and it's a solid line. Now that would be perfectly fine if we were dealing with just algebra, but we're truly dealing with a real world problem, so we need to think about that for a second. Let's first of all decide which side to shade. So let's pick, notice 0, 0 is on the line. So I'm going to pick this point right here. He's not on the line. And that point is 0, 3. And I'm going to substitute it in. I'll substitute it in the beginning one if I remember which one's x and which one's y. So is 0 greater than or equal to 2 times 3? Is 0 greater than or equal to 6? Well, no. So it's not on that side. So I'm going to shade down here. But remember that I also asked that this was a real world problem where X and Y were demolitions and foundations. So what happens is I have to be only in quadrant 1. So my true answer is right here. Because I can't have negatives. And we could even go into greater depth that you really can't have a half a foundation or a half a demolition. Well, maybe you could if you only worked at it a little while and went back the next day. So here's where my set of answers will be. And that continues, so it will continue over here. This is kind of therapeutic. All right, so that's where my final answer would be. So let's go ahead and pause the video if you need to. Welcome back. Let's go back to our PowerPoint and let's see. I replaced it, I solved it and made sure it was solved for y. I graphed the line and remembered it was solid. I picked a test point. This time I picked 5, 1 and found out that was true, so I shaded that side. And then I thought about the real world complications that we couldn't have negatives. So there is my answer. It's just in quadrant 1. So double check. And then here's your closure. Today, tweet a friend. So within 140 characters or less, explain what you learned today. And I'll meet you back here another time for another math and CTE lesson.